So, before getting to know what exactly the burnout means, let's take a scenario wherein, on occasion, the manager or the co worker may observe that an employee who is becoming increasingly more irritable and often late or absent from work. The employee's enthusiasm and his or her productivity level may have dropped. Whereas the employee was once a smiling and upbeat member of the team, now may notice that he or she now rarely cracks a smile and most of the times seems cloaked in sadness. People do not change in these dramatic ways without reason and without cause for concern. So that something wrong with such an employee may be a number of things, but among these, it is possible that the employee is experiencing burnout. In fact, that's a pretty good first guess, right? That's because employees' burnout is on rise today and is receiving constant media attention today because more and more employees are just missing work due to burnout. Even the recent case that the MNC employee and an IIT IIM graduate who dies by suicide, but then the police suspect that it's due to work pressure. So there are many such cases in the recent years that get us to know that the burnout is the most important, that we have to know how to manage it, so that because it's a reaction of a chronic job stress that would lead to persons physical, emotionally and mentally exhausted. So it can be thought of a psychological process, that a series of attitudinal and emotional reactions that an employee goes through as a result of job related and personal experiences. The burnout has three primary hallmarks. We can say that the hallmarks are the signs or those indicators of experiencing burnout. First, the exhaustion. Often, the first sign of burnout is a feeling of being emotionally exhausted from one's work. The exhaustion component represents the basic individual stress dimension of burnout. So, it basically refers to the feelings of being overextended and depleted of one's emotional and physical resources. So, often when asked to describe how he or she, the employee, is feeling, he might mention that he's feeling drained or used up at the end of the rope and physically fatigued. So they have low energy to continue and even start a new task. So this exhaustion is the central quality of burnout, the most obvious manifestation of this complex syndrome of burnout. So when people describe themselves or others as experiencing burnout, so they are most often referring to the experience of exhaustion. So, however, the fact that the exhaustion is necessary criteria for burnout does not mean it is sufficient. So, if one were to look at burnout out of context and simply focus on the individual exhaustion component, one would lose sight of the phenomena that entirely. So, although exhaustion reflects the stress dimension of burnout, it fails emotionally and cognitively from one's work to capture those critical aspects of relationship that people have with their work. So the exhaustion, it just prompts action to distance oneself. So the emotional demands of the work can exhaust a person's capacity to be involved with and the responsiveness and the needs and the requirements for his or her job. The second, cynicism, the less identification with the job. The cynicism, or we can call it as a depersonalization component, it represents the interpersonal context dimension of burnout. It refers to negative that is showing or having an insensitive and cruel disregard for others or excessively detached response to various aspects of the job. Burnt out employees often feel isolated from work related activities. Sometimes they experience a feeling of numbness about their work. They may also find that going to work and doing so much the common things becomes harder and harder each day. So they people just attempt to just put distance from oneself and work by actively ignoring the qualities that make them unique and engaging with people. Their demands are more manageable when they are considered impersonal objects of one's work. Third, the feelings of reduced professional ability and capacity. So, this component of reduced efficacy or the accomplishment, it represents the self-evaluation dimension of burnout. It refers to the feelings of incompetence and the lack of achievement and productivity at work. Employees experiencing burnout begin to doubt themselves, their capabilities, or the values of what they are doing or what they are contributing to it to the organization. Many individuals begin their careers with expectations that they will make a great contribution to the employer and society. But after working a year or two on the job, they begin to realize that they are not living up to those expectations, or even they are not near to those expectations. That will eventually lead to those less, the reduced professional ability and those capacity of an employee. So the exhaustion and the depersonalization component that we have discussed right now, it also does interferes with this effectiveness. So it is difficult to gain a sense of accomplishment when a person, an employee, is feeling exhausted or when helping people toward whom one is indifferent.